Well, today we are going to talk about the HTTP communication. Error handling we'll see later on. HTTP communication. Or I can explain error handling while working with the HTTP communication also. Well, today is a day 110. Day 110. Date 29th of July and time is this. 29th of July and timing is this. Now, we have created a new project for understanding the HTTP. So before moving ahead, tell me what is HTTP. Before moving ahead, first tell me what is HTTP. So we would be understanding first what do you mean by HTTP? What do you mean by what? HTTP. Can you tell me what is HTTP? And why I have said HTTP communication? So this is the client and this is the server. This is the server and this is the client. How these two computers on the internet would be communicating with each other? How these two computers on the internet would be communicating with each other? I want these two computers on the internet to communicate with each other. How do you do this thing? Hello? So you are writing React at client side. You are writing React at the client side. Hello? Now what is the server side? Take the example of the login screen. Take the example of the login screen. You are sending, so here username and password form you have created. And this username and password needs to be checked in the database, right? So you will sending the username and password to the server. Server will check username password in the database and server will give you a response back that this database is available. Sorry, this user is available or not. So how these things are happening? How this communication is happening? Remember that this communication is happening over the internet. This is a very vague term that it is happening over the internet. It is happening over something called as one application level protocol called as HTTP. It is happening over what? Internet, that is correct. But technically, infrastructure for communication of the client and server is over the HTTP. It's a protocol. The protocol says that client must send request. Client must send request. Then server should return response. Client must send the request. Server must return the response. Client send the request. Server should return the response. So this is request and response communication. First thing about the HTTP. There are a lot of things about the HTTP, but first things, client will initiate the request. Client means what? Not the React. Remember that. Server is written in such a way that it follows the HTTP idea. Server is written in such a way that it follows the HTTP idea. What is the HTTP idea? First thing, client should request, server should response. That is the HTTP idea. So here, while you creating the server side application, it should be HTTP server, and client should have the HTTP client. There is a HTTP server and there is a HTTP client. HTTP server is there, HTTP client. What is the HTTP? It is the protocol. What that protocol says? That protocol says there would be having request and response model. Client will request, server will respond. Client will request and server will respond. Okay. Client will request and server will respond. Now, from the backend, in the server side, you must have created the HTTP server. And in the client, remember that client is not the React app. Client means your browser. Browser built-in has the capability of the HTTP. In the React, you are just going to give a call to this HTTP facility which is already there. You will not do anything else. What you will do, you will just simply use the browser's HTTP facility. Browser has already is having the HTTP mechanism in it. You just would be using that HTTP mechanism. Okay. Now HTTP is a request and response. Client will initiate this request. Now this request can be initiated in the different ways, types. There are different types. Get request, post request, right? Put request, delete request, and there are many other things, but generally when you learn, you can understand over this. Get, post, put, delete. So this request would be sent to the server. So whenever browser creates this request object, it is having two things, headers and the body. Body means what? If you want to pass username and password, that username and password would be put in the body. So header would be having what is the type of the request, get or post, that you will write into the header, right? Get, post, put, delete, and there are many other types also. What is the client? So a lot of things are added. Browser adds many things on its own, but you can specify which request is there. Get, post, put, delete. Get, post, put, delete. Right? Get, post, put, delete. I'll give you one example. So here to understand, one extension I have added, I will tell you that extension later on, demo.rest, and there is one free server, JSON placeholder. Fake APIs are available. So here I can say fake APIs, get And this thing, see, get is the request, this is the URL of the server. This much thing is the URL of the server. We'll talk about the URL. And now you can send the request and see, now you are getting some response back. So here, get from which server? Get means what? Getting something from the server. So we create the headers. A lot of headers are getting added over here. So get is one of that. So another header is a content type. And here we can say, this is a predefined application JSON. So here you are saying that I would be sending you some content, and that content would be of type application JSON. JSON, we have seen the JSON. And in return, server is sending you back some response. Response is also having some header. Can you see this header? Whatever you see in the red, all these are the headers: date, content type, transfer encoding, connection, report to. And after that there is a space, and after that there is a body. This is a body. So here also, if you want to post something, you can write post and name of the URL. So this is a dummy server, a toy server, fake server they have given, right? For the, if you want to post something, can you see some example? / posts. So this URL posts / and here after this we can write the body. So headers, presently you don't need to write it, or you can write it also. Can you see content type? This is one of my header, application JSON. Here I can say, so here we can say user ID colon any random data we are passing, right? Here you, if you click over here, see the guides of the usage examples, creating a resource. This is the post, and we just need to pass title, body, and the user ID. So here I can pass now title. This is just an example. Whenever you create your own server in the Express.js, so this would be pretty much clear to you. Presently we are not writing the backend. This is new post, right? This is the JSON we are sending, and then body, we need to pass body, and here you can say it's good. And yes, here let's comment these two things and send the request. And can you see here, you have sent the request and response you have got from the server, and you have got response. So this is the, that's what I'm explaining over here. Every request would be having header. This is nothing but the header. Presently I have taken only one. There are many headers available out there, like, can you see x powered by, x rate limit, x rate limit remaining, x rate limit reset vary, access control allow credentials. These are the some headers, and we will have a lot of such headers we can pass while requesting. So this request would be transferred to the server, and server will also respond you by means of one response object, which is also having header and response body. So this thing we are going to call it as request body, and this thing we are going to call it as response body. Request body, response body. So here client will send this request, and server will send this response back, right? Request and response model. Now if you see here, this thing is important. There is one line over here. Am I audible, team? Are you there? Can you see 201? So 201 is a response code. So server gets the details, process it, and server marks it with the different status codes. With what? Different status code. There are many status codes available. First status code, this if status code starts from 2xx, if it starts from the 2, it represents the success. The status code which is marked in the response, if it starts from the 2xx, 201, 200, it says what? Success. 3xx, redirection. If server is setting the status code as something which starting from the 3, it's a redirection. 4, which is something bad happened with the request data. Something bad happened with the data you have sent from the request. 5xx, server logic error, problem with the your server. That's it. 2xx, 3xx. So 200 means okay. There are many. 201, which is created. So infamous, you might have seen 401 or 400, resource 404, resource not found. Resource means what? Something on the server which is not available, which you try to access something on the server which is not available. You're trying to access something on the server, but that is not available. That is nothing but what? The 400. Correct? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Now, sorry. Now, this is about the server status codes. This is about what? Server status codes. Okay. So we talked about the server status code, this request and response, and the URL now. So this thing, whatever you see over here is the URL, uniform resource URL. Full form of this: uniform resource locator. Resource uniform means what? Is same. Resource means what? Things on the server, anything on the server, that can be image, that can be mp3, that can be your logic, anything that can be identified is called as resource. Things on server. And locator means what? A kind of id. If you see over here, if you want to access if you click over here, so /learn is opening this page. So this page is one of the resource. This page is the resource for a server. /learn is the page that would be resource. Now if you go over here and if you see, just inspect it. Well, this is nothing but one of the resource. This image is nothing but one of the resource for the server, right? So when you talk about the URL, if you look at this, if I copy this. If I copy this, so this is the URL. So this thing, sorry, till this much you can say is the protocol. So this typecode.com is called as domain. This JSON placeholder dot typecode.com, this thing is called as subdomain. Post / post, this thing is called as resource path. This thing is called as what? Resource path. So this is the proper domain which is running. But if you see our this thing localhost 5173, behind this also, remember that behind this as well, behind this HTTPS JSON placeholder.typecode, there is also something like this available. So in this case, this thing is called as port, the localhost domain where exactly server is running. Sorry, not this. This thing is called as protocol. This thing is called as port. Port means what? A server on the server, application is running in a process ID. This is the not exactly process ID, but in which process is associated to this application, that is this number is, that is called as port. URL, uniform resource locator. Now when you talk about HTTP communication, one more term coins, that is called as REST. It's not a front-end idea. Remember that REST stands for representational state transfer. Representational state transfer. It is one of the idea. It is one of the ideology or idea. It is one of the idea to write the server side applications. It is one of the idea, or you can say it is one of the way to write the server side applications. Representational means human understandable. State, the React's kind of state you can consider. State means what? Current data, and transfer from the client to server or server to client, vice versa. State means what? Actual data. State means what? Actual data that is going to get transferred from the client and server. Representational means what? The data, the state is human readable. Data is what? Human readable. Human readable data transfer. Hello? Representational state transfer. Remember that it is HTTP and the REST are two different things. REST is written on the top of HTTP. REST is internally using the HTTP only, but it is the ideology how to write the servers, how to write the good servers to avoid some To avoid some problems, group of software engineers came together and they decided to make it standard. That is nothing but what the rest is, but it's not related to the front end, it's related to the back end, right? Then whenever client and server is communicating with each other, client and server can send the XML, client can send the XML, server can process the XML, again gives XML response back, or the JSON. This we know, right? JSON, you know, it's a JavaScript object notation, something which is looking like JavaScript object. See this. This is not the JavaScript object, but this is looking like JavaScript object, which is nothing but what the JSON is. Correct? So this is a theory behind the HTTP. First, we understood what is HTTP, right? It's a request and response model. It's a request and response model. HTTP is going to send HTTP. In the HTTP, client is going to request, server is going to respond. Client can make a request using get, post, put, delete. There are many other request types. Request would be consisting of the header and the body. There are different headers we might use in our project, different headers and actual body. Get request doesn't have any body. Get means we'll see that whenever we actually type the code, at that time we will see what's the get, put, post, delete. But you can understand this is one of the request type right now. Request would be having header and the body. Server is going to get the request and it is going to process a response back. It is going to give you the response back. So response is also consisting of the header and the body. Response is also consisting of the header and the body. Response is having something called as status code, and status codes are starting from 2345. 200, which is the success. 2xx represents the success on the server side. 3xx represents the redirection, means server have redirected to another server. 4xx represents some problem with the request data. 5xx represents some problem at the server side logic. There is a problem with server side logic. Right? Then we talked about the URL, Uniform Resource Locator. What do you mean by URL exactly? And what are the different segments of the URL we talked about? Any questions?
Sir, what is the full form of HTTP?
Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Do you remember? We have studied this at the time of HTML5, CSS3
Yes.
intro. Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Same HTTP is here. Okay. So today we have seen the theory. Tomorrow I am going to type the code. We'll start the session exactly 5:30.
Sir, where is the HTTP document?
Yeah, it's in the same thing. Just search for the HTTP Mozilla doc. You'll get the details.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Everything is there only.
Yes, sir.
It is not related to React also. But React is having some APIs. That APIs we will see how to use. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll
Yes, sir.
see.
Thank you.
We'll meet tomorrow.
Yes.